The Marklin Engine. Henry limped into the shed, feeling exhausted. "He's really getting on my nerves," he sighed. "Thomas isn't even here anymore," huffed James. "He's gone to work on the branch line." "Not Thomas," Henry fumed. "Marklin." "Oh," said Gordon, trying to go to sleep. "Marklin's still here? I thought the Fat Controller sent him away ages ago." "You'd be surprised," sighed Henry. "He kept complaining to me about his trains. It wasn't my fault. He seems to have a bad temper with everyone." "What do you expect?" huffed James. "He doesn't get to see the world like Thomas does." Henry sighed. He was too tired to talk any more, and went to sleep. Marklin was the nickname of a tank engine from another country. The Fat Controller had brought him to be station pilot at Knapford before Thomas came to the island. But ever since Thomas arrived, Marklin felt like he had been used less and less. Every time Thomas came up from the branch line with Annie and Clarabelle, Marklin would always find an argument with him. "You're the reason why I fade into the background nowadays," he fumed crossly. Thomas paid no attention, but he couldn't help feel like Marklin was targeting him in a vicious fashion. "He is an arrogant old brute," Thomas complained to Percy in the shed that night. "I just don't understand what his problem is towards me. Ever since I got my branch line, Marklin has treated me like scrap iron." "Maybe something's troubling him," said Percy. "Troubling him?" huffed Thomas. "The big engines have said he's targeted them as well." "It stops now, Percy." Before Percy could voice his opinion again, Thomas went crossly to sleep. The very next morning, Percy came to the big station to sort out Gordon's coaches. He had just brought them to the platform and was about to prepare a goods train for Henry when he heard arguing. He looked across the yard and saw Gordon and Marklin bickering furiously at each other. "You don't tell me what to do, little one," scolded Gordon. "That's the Fat Controller's job." "What's the Fat Controller going to do about it?" fretted Marklin. "He never listens to me. You lot never listen to me either." "We do listen to you," huffed Gordon. "Not since that little blue runt came to the island," Marklin rapped back. "Don't you dare talk about Thomas that way," thundered Gordon. "Now go off and hide in the corner, you little black rain cloud." Marklin felt rather hurt. He puffed sadly away. "Gordon," said Percy, "there was no need for that." "The stupid little runt told me to go and fetch my own coaches," rapped Gordon, "and then spoke illy of Thomas. I won't stand for it." Gordon thundered away from the station to get his coaches. Percy saw that Marklin was heading over to the sheds. This was the moment he would find out what was going on. When Percy caught up with Marklin, he was telling Thomas and Edward what had happened. Thomas, who was still cross with Marklin, was just about to voice his reasons and tell Marklin what he thought of him when Percy cut in. "Please don't be upset with him," he pleaded. "It wasn't his fault." Marklin was surprised. "Why are you sticking up for me?" he asked. "Something's troubling you," said Percy. "Why don't you tell us what it is?" Marklin was taken aback. He took a deep breath and sighed. "I just miss my old railway," he admitted. "The Fat Controller said I was going to stay here for quite some time, but he wasn't specific on how long I'd be here." "You miss your old friends, don't you?" asked Edward. "I miss them a lot," confessed Marklin. Thomas now felt terrible. I'm really sorry," he said. "Don't be," said Marklin. "I just want to go home." Marklin limped sadly away. "Poor engine," said Edward. Luckily, the Fat Controller's coming back from his holidays. Perhaps he'll be able to sort something out." Edward puffed away, leaving Thomas and Percy with a concerned look between them. A few weeks later, the engines were resting in the shed. James had some very exciting news. "The Fat Controller's got a postcard from Marklin's old railway," he said excitedly. "Is he all right?" asked Thomas. "He's doing better than all right," chuckled James. "He's had an overhaul and everything. You wouldn't recognise him." "I feel bad that we never got to know him properly," said Thomas. "Do you think he'll be all right on his old railway?" "Of course he would," said Edward. "It's a big city port like no other. He'll be just fine." The engines smiled. While they never got the chance to see Marklin again, they knew he was doing well on his old railway, feeling more happier than ever before. And I bet you're wondering what Edward meant by big city port. If I told you, you probably wouldn't believe me.